The Writings of Philosopher Prince Israel Zaar. Title: Land of Heritages or Land of the Free. I now read. Something happened to the empire. The external infiltration that Americans were no longer proud of themselves as one Americans, as per the Constitution and its preamble, of which they should. How did the Constitution that gave birth to America and Americans' freedoms, liberties, and exceptionalism soon bred citizens ashamed of the Constitution in favor of heritage? How did the doctrine of heritage become the seed of insecurity and subserviency that stole the greatest of America and the pride of its people? How did it become that this once great country and envy of the world, based on the preambles and articles of nobody is above the law, or that all are born equal before the law, soon became a state of heritage over constitutionality? So was it that Americans were begging to be seen as European Americans, African Americans, Asians Americans, or white Americans, or Black Americans but not Americans, and nothing else? What became of that great nation and people that their people were ashamed of being Americans but proud to be Americans on the conditionalities of heritage or artificialities of colors, race constructs? What stage of insecurity or inferiority complex was it that gold, being an American, needed silver, heritage, or bronze color in order to be relevant, important, loved, respected, or liked? Isn't gold, as being an American, its intrinsic value, self-worth? How can the sun, like being an American, not be sufficient and necessary in itself, but begging to be seen as sun, moon, or as European American, or as African American, or Asian American, in order to be itself? Isn't the sun proud of itself? And that's why it's called the sun and nothing else, but the shine to earth just as American? The devolution to America came from within, from those dividing Americans, or negatively or illegally categorizing them, those diluting or deleting or replacing the Constitution, those leaders promoting other heritages other than America. Isn't being an American, as per the Constitution and Providence, a race in itself, sufficient, necessary, essential, vital, needed, wanted, and desired? The unsecured came to Americans, gained power and wealth to change America from being the country of multitude, indivisible under God and law, into a heritage foundation. Isn't the USA a united foundation rather than a heritage or lineage foundation or a cultural war foundation? Wasn't it just a matter of time that the empire will be in crisis, that the world soon get to see that the empire isn't who and what he or she is, that nations around the world soon reaffirm their obvious biased projections, perceptions, and perspectives of a divided people not proud of being American, but only proud of being Americans in something else? That the empire is insecure in itself, ashamed of itself, and ashamed of its citizens. What became of an empire and people who constantly dislike themselves, of which they shouldn't, perpetually divide themselves, of which they shouldn't, and grievously fighting and hurting or threatening and disenfranchising, discriminating, punishing, depriving, or impoverishing themselves or segments of themselves? What became of an empire that soon was unproud of itself, its achievements, or the positive causality contributions of all its people? Isn't it ironic? They say a house divided against itself can't stand, that a people call themselves a united people or United States and are still brutally and sometimes inhumanely divided against themselves. Isn't it ironic that a people are only united when it's to go to war, or are only united in threats of terror domestically and abroad, and constantly disunited and brutally divided in times of peace? Isn't it ironic that the empire wants to broker peace and stability abroad, but is constantly stricken by insecurity, instability, and violence, or the threats of the same at home, of which it shouldn't. Isn't it ironic that the empire is a democracy, as if there had ever been a democratic empire, or that the empire is constitutional, as if an empire ever respected the dictates and letters of its constitution? Didn't America become that exception? A democratic and constitutional empire, but some still craving or incentivized to blatantly abuse the rule of law, the rights of all persons and freedoms of all persons? This is philosophical, not empirical. The Wisdom of Zaarrianism, philosopher Prince Israel Zaar, USA, May 2nd, 2026. The background video is Trianglerism, Immersive Inventive Art. Hope you enjoy listening. Leave a comment and subscribe.